Hi there, welcome back to another episode of Sit and Spin with me, your host, Joe Royal. And today on the show, kind of a love letter episode, because we're going to be talking about not only the new release from the band, but also kind of the history of the band in general, because I never thought I would get a chance to talk about these guys on the show, but because of events that happened late last year, new music that was actually able to be produced by the band, but I'm going to tell you about all of their history in general. And that, of course, would be the Detroit power pop trio, TheFags, and primarily, we'll get to the end of it, we'll be talking about their new release, I'm With Her. I'm going to give you the whole history of the group. Now, the group is comprised of John Speck, real last name Licordello, on vocals and guitar, Jimmy Paluzzi on drums and vocals, and Tim Patalan on bass. They were formed back in 2000 and are probably one of the greatest bands you've never even had the chance to hear of before. And primarily, especially in the case of John Speck, that's because it's a guy who just can't seem to catch a break musically. Now, way back in 1997, there was a band called Horse, who released an album, debut record called Happens Twice on RCA Records. And they were comprised of, previously mentioned, John Speck, bassist Robbie Graham, and Jimmy Paluzzi, who had just gotten out of doing a stint with fellow Detroit rockers, the band Sponge. And he was the drummer for the band on this record, their debut album, Rotting Pinata from 1994, a record that also happened to be co-produced by one Tim Patalan. Now, Horse's record was a decent, fuzzed-out guitar record of 90s alternative rock, really great songs, great vocals, with John doing most of the vocals and Jimmy Paluzzi doing some of them. And unfortunately, the reason that the record never really took off or gave much notice is that because it kind of languished in RCA's vaults for almost a year and a half before it finally got released. And when it finally did come out, the label gave it very little support, and the band ended up breaking up within months of the album even coming out. I mean, actually, it was probably like 6 months of the record coming out, middle or end of 97. They'd broken up by 1998. And after that band dissolved, John Speck next started up the group, the Schemin' No Goods, in 2000 with former Speedball drummer Chuck Burns and bassist Ron Sikowski, who had played with Necros and Laughing Hyenas. And this band wore its inspirational cues from hometown proto-punk legends in Detroit, the Stooges and the MC5, for a much leaner, harder, faster, punkier sound. In fact, the song Supercharged off this album, which is one of my favorites, it's very much influenced by the Stooges song TV Eye, and even though some of the songs on the album got used in some TV shows, it failed to generate interest from a major label, and again, the band was pretty much broken up by the time the album was finally released by Idol Records in 2004. Now, in the interim of that record coming out, and the band breaking up in 2002, John Speck had gotten back together with his former bandmate Jimmy Paluzzi, and they'd reunited and got together with Tim Patalan. Now, Jimmy had known Tim from working together in Sponge, and John had gotten familiar with Tim from recording the Schemin' No Goods album at Tim's studio, The Loft. And these guys started working together in a yet unnamed project, and they were starting to generate a lot of buzz in the local Detroit rock scene. And when it finally came time for them to do like a big show and they needed a name, Jimmy jokingly came up with the moniker The Smoking Fags at the last minute, which kind of just got shortened down to just the Fags, being slang for, British slang for cigarettes, of course. And even though some of the other band members weren't really happy about it, the name had kind of already stuck at this point, and they just kind of got saddled with it, just kind of had to go with it. So the trio recorded and released the self-titled 5-song EP, TheFags, using their connections with Idol Records, and had them release it in 2002 to kind of build buzz on the band and the record. That led to the band finally getting a label deal signed with 2004 with Seymour Stein's revamped label Sire Records, a classic Sire Records label, with distribution through Warner Brothers. The band then set about recording their full-length debut album, which would be called Light 'Em Up. And in the interim, Sire released a promotional-only EP, the Tour EP, which featured 2 new songs from the upcoming album, which were actually re-records from the original EP. One previously unreleased track called Firecracker, and live versions of 2 songs from the upcoming album as well. And that was all in essence to kind of, give people record companies, record radio stations is what I want saying, and that stuff, to help kind of further build the band up, give them a taste of what was to come and stuff. Now, Light 'Em Up is an absolutely all-killer, no-filler 11-track album, prime power pop, again, emphasis on power, and one of my favorite records of the 2000s, if not ever. The group and its songs bring to mind some of my other favorite bands and elements, groups like Cheap Trick and The Cars, with catchy melodies, great lyrics, and hooks galore, and maybe just a tad of a little glam metal rock thrown in too. John Speck sings with a vocal that's raspy, kind of gravelly, yet goes down melodically smooth and sweet, and the songs that he writes are just great lyrics, just, again, like super catchy, clever, and the trio's performances are taut and energy-filled, and even though I could pick favorites off this album like Tonight, or Truly Truly, or Siren Song, or List, or Mistake, or Greatest Movie Ending, really the whole album's absolutely killer. I love the whole thing. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, this album is so phenomenal, why have I never heard of it before? Well, because once again, even though things started out looking really promising, they would end up going south in the end. For one, Sire's reestablishment wasn't going as smoothly as they had planned, and the band were only given half of the advance that they were initially promised up front. The rest wasn't even paid out to them when they finally turned in the master tapes. Now, this led to lots of arguments, which turned into unanswered phone calls, and days, and then weeks, and then months, and eventually years of fighting with the label and trying to get the record out over things like promotional support, tour support, and all the other things to keep a band up and running while they're trying to get out on the road and create buzz and get a new album out. And once again, this led to the record languishing in the vaults while all this was being worked out. And the band eventually, rather unceremoniously, found out that they had been dropped by the label, not through a phone call or a meeting, but because they were looking at the label's talent roster and realized they were no longer on it. Now, they were finally able to somewhat win their battle with Sire Records, and they, in essence, they got the masters to their album back as well as the rights to it, but they never did get paid the rest of the initial advance that they were owed. And you know, this kind of led to a lot of disillusionment because you'd spent all this time working on this great record, and, you know, years are going by, and you just want to get it out there and have it reach people. And tensions grew within the band members. Paluzzi and Speck weren't getting along, and so once again, they found themselves in a situation that they were breaking up within months of the album finally being released, which was when Idol Records put it out in 2006. Now, the record did gain a lot of favorable press. Alternative press, places like that, said a lot of nice things about the record, and it even made Spin Magazine's top albums of that year. It was actually my #1 album in 2006. But we're going to continue this story in just a second, because I'm going to do something I never do and take a momentary break in the show because I have so many notes and I just have to switch them out, so bear with me, we'll be right back. And just like that, we're back. I hate doing that. I like doing my shows all live in one take, so to speak, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Now, where we left off, the band had just broken up. Tim Patalan would go back to primarily being a producer, working at his own studio, The Loft, but would later spend some time actually playing in Sponge himself on some of their latter albums. Jimmy Paluzzi kind of stepped out of the music business for a little while, settled down to be a family man, but he also would later join Sponge singer Vinny Dabrowski in his country rock side project, The Orbit Sons. John Speck would try one final time to get a band project going off the ground. This time as part of the punkier Hi-Fi Hand Grenades, with singer-guitarist Tony Vegas, formerly of the Grand National, and the former rhythm section of the Suicide Machines, Ryan Vandenberg and Rick Tichart, sorry, I said that wrong. While they were able to generate a little bit of buzz, enough so that they got the opening slot on the Foo Fighters tour in 2008. They couldn't secure a US album deal, and their lone album, Carry On, which is like 22 minutes of prime punk rock, didn't get much distribution here. And as a matter of fact, it's the only thing from like Speck's catalog pretty much that I don't have, or at least that I know of. And again, yeah, they kind of broke up because they couldn't quite get things off the ground. John Then went on to do stints being a guitar tech for groups like the Dropkick Murphys and Rancid and Silver Sun Pickups, kind of pay the bills and make a living. Eventually settled in Austin, Texas for a while, and recently moved back to the Detroit area. And of course, this led to him getting back together with his former bandmates in TheFags. He'd kind of checked out some Morbid Sun shows. Years had gone by. Things that were issues in the band before became water under the bridge, and they started talking together again about, hey, let's do, maybe we should do a reunion show for the 10th anniversary of Light 'Em Up, which was last year, 2016. And sure enough, they did. They did a show at Smalls in Detroit. They recorded it, and it went well. And seeing that there was still a lot of interest in the band, they started talking about maybe making a new record, which brings us to I'm With Her. And this is an album which is primarily for the fans and funded for them via a pledge music campaign that the group ran late last year. And not only could you get help make this new album by the band, but you could also get DVD copies of the small show, 10th anniversary remastered version of Light 'Em Up, which I didn't opt out on because I have no problems with the original, and other goodies that the band offered up too. We'll get to kind of some of those in a minute. And now, while this was touted as being a new album, and for all intents and purposes, it is a new album of newly recorded material by the band, it's not all entirely new music. Some of the tracks, like Holding Out, Something Old, Collectible Girl, and Stuck Like a Photograph, are either brand new songs that the band had written or previously unfinished ones that they finally got around to doing. There's also a live version of the previously unissued Lost Weekend Blues and a hidden bonus track buried deep within the end of the album's last track, which is that live track, which is not labeled as a title, but going from the song's lyrics, it sounds like maybe an unissued version of the title track from the Light 'Em Up album. Very punky track. Or it could be a cover, I'm not entirely sure, because it doesn't say, but they can let me know on that. But basically, though, the rest of the album, the bulk of it, or should I say this version of it, we'll get to more of that in a minute, is primarily all cover songs. And these songs were all chosen by Pleasures in what was initially going to be a special video song released just for those Pleasures. However, they came out so well that the group decided they would include them all for all of the people who had pledged for the album and make them part of the album proper. And they are, in terms, pretty straightforward, stellar, unexpected, and all the while remaining super cool. There is a nearly unrecognizable version of Madonna's Ray Light, which already played in the background, mainly because while it shares the same lyrics, the arrangement and some of the lyrical changes are all the Fags. And even myself, the first 2 or 3 times I heard the song, I did not realize it was that track, but it's great regardless. There are also great takes on the Jam's Got By in Time, Watershed's Black Bootleg Concert t-shirt, and really sweet versions of Thin Lizzy's Wild One, and Iron Maiden's Power Slave. Yeah, with great guitar work and guitar solos from John Speck on both of those songs. Some nice acoustic guitar touches on Power Slave as well. Totally unexpected thing for me, but love both of them. And being that the band are from Detroit, they also do a take on Ted Nugent's Detroit classic Motor City Madhouse, as well as hometown power pop legends The Romantics with a killer version of the group's Tomboy, where appropriately enough, John Speck and Jimmy Paluzzi trade off lead vocals just as Jimmy Marinos and Wally Palmer had done on The Romantics' original version. Love their take on that song as well. And the band truly made all of these covers their own. And while you may not be familiar with all the songs, of course you'd be familiar with some of them, you'd be inclined to think that they were Fags songs in general, because they just, that's how well they do them, that's how much they make them their own. And they're just really, really great tracks on the album. And one of the other things you got too, if you got the pledge music thing, you also got an autographed copy, as you can see mine is. The unfortunate thing with my copy and a lot of people's copies is that it got kind of mangled by the U.S. Post Office. You probably can't see it, but the edge is all bent up and stuff. Mine and some of the other people who got their pledge music albums were either broken or really marked up. I actually had to get a replacement disc myself because mine was messed up by shipping stuff, but they were very cool about replacing it, which was nice. Now, back to this version of the album thing. I'd spoken to John Speck recently via Messenger, and he said that the band is still trying to shop the album to a label deal. And if that should happen, rather than having the album be a lot of covers, what they would do would be finish up some of the other new material and unfinished songs they were working on, and have those tunes comprise most of the bulk of the rest of the record. And they would leave maybe 2, possibly 3 of the covers on the album, ones that were probably going to be like selected from what the band liked out of them, as well as what the Pledge people who got the record like thought were their favorite songs off the album. However that's going to work out, I'm not entirely sure, but hopefully that will happen, and we'll get even more new music from the Fags. Now, here's the bummer part, and that is that because I was ill and it took me so long to get the show out, and also because it took a while for the band to actually get the albums sent out, and I wanted to actually have a physical copy to review of the show. Unfortunately, Pledge Music campaign is over, and you can no longer get this. So, unless you know someone, or the band somehow releases some up, or makes some available again, this version of the album is a unique entity all to itself. So, even though I'm talking about it, you'll not be able to get it. Sorry about that little trick bummer at the ending, but it may still be possible ways for you to get a copy, like I said, down the road, and maybe releasing it. Like I said, I'm hoping that there's going to be even more new Fags music out. In the meantime, really psyched to have this new record from the Fags, I'm With Her. And they're a great band. You can still, however, get through the Idol Records website, which I'll include a link to, you can still get the original versions of Light 'Em Up, the 2 EPs that were released, and the Schemin' No Goods album. If any of those things sounded interesting to you, you can go back and buy those and still kind of self-support the band. The Horse album, if you want to find that, you're going to have to track down a used copy somewhere, because this is a long out-of-print record. And as we already talked about Hi-Fi Hand Grenades, it's out there, you can get it, but it may not be that easy to find. That's something else I like. One last thing about the Wild One cover, they throw in just a little bit of Truly Truly, their own song at the end of it. That's kind of a sweet thing. Glad that happened right then so I wouldn't forget it. But Fags, absolutely great band. Glad they have new music out. Hopefully they'll have more. Glad to be able to do this little love letter show on them. Please, yeah, you love power pop, you love good rock and roll, check these out. Well worth getting, especially this record. The EPs are great too. But definitely check them out, and that's the show for this week. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Next week, more new music. Believe it or not, possibly another band from the Detroit area, or the Michigan area at least, that we're going to be talking about. And we'll catch you next time on Sit and Spin. See you then. Thanks for checking it out.